Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We are wrapping up our series, Road to Recovery. It's been a look at the journey and the challenges for people in BC who are recovering from substance use and addiction. We've heard from people who shared how they got to the point of seeking help, the barriers to recovery, and from the families who say there's no system to help them. Today, we look to the future. What does it take to rebuild your life? We'd love you to share your story as well. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us. We're on live radio around the province and on CBC television, live streaming as well. And you can call us now on our top story this hour. What does it take to rebuild your life as you recover from addiction? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also dial 1-800-825-5950 or just hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Well, our Road to Recovery series came about from a need to find out what was really going on beyond the grim and tragic statistics from the coroner's service and the increasingly politicized debate about safe supply or the BC's decriminalization pilot. We've learned a lot from our guests and from our callers who've shared stories that are both inspiring and heartbreaking. So today we conclude our series and we're talking about what is needed to get back into the life that you want to lead. And that's after getting out of treatment. So we're asking you, how did you rebuild your life during your recovery from addiction? What are the supports that you think are needed? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your phone or email bctoday@cbc.ca. I have two guests joining me this hour. Sarah Beley is director of the Working Gear Clothing Society, and that's a charity in the downtown east side that provides work clothing and haircutting to help people enter the workforce. And we started our series with an in-depth interview with Guy Felicella. He's a harm reduction advocate and peer clinical advisor with the Vancouver Coastal Health and the BC Centre on Substance Use. And both are with me now in our studio. Hello to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Guy, we started with you back at the end of April. And, you know, we've spoken many times. You're quite prominent as a harm reduction advocate. But I have to say I learned a lot more about you that day. You shared a lot of your own personal journey. Why do you feel it's important to share so much about your own life?
Well, I think, it's inspiring for others to know that people do, recover. I think there's a lot that goes into when you share a story. Obviously, you have to be, understand that it can open the door to a lot of negative people commenting on your journey. But it's been, for me, it's been the importance of inspiring others not to go down the same path as me. And so for me, that's why I share it. And in the hopes that, for anybody that's struggling, that the importance of reaching out and getting support is there if you need it.
What response have you had since our interview with you?
I've had numerous people reach out about the Road to Recovery series. I actually had an Uber driver when I got into his car where he was so excited to see me. He said, it's an honor to have you in my Uber, and very excited that you're recovered. And he said, what a tremendous story, and I learned so much, and I follow you on social media. And so, yeah, it was really good.
I asked you this during our original interview, what pushes you to keep doing what you do?
I just care about people. I mean, that's the be all to end all, is that tragically, obviously, the leading cause of death in British Columbia between the ages of 10 to 59 is the unregulated toxic drug crisis. And I also, don't want people to die. And I also want people to know that if you do struggle with an addiction, that, we can get you the help that you need and get you on the road to recovery. And so.
For yourself, what made the difference? What was it for you, the road to rebuilding your life?
Well, I think it was obviously for me in my world, if there wasn't, harm reduction services available as that safety net when I went into recovery and I left and used again and, overdosed and was brought back to life, without those full continuum of care. And that's really what I continue to advocate for, and will never change from that, is that we need all the tools to support people who struggle with addiction, because it is a chronic relapsing condition. And, the failure that oftentimes that I felt from relapsing was overwhelming, but having harm reduction there to support me was really the avenue. And they were the ones that were constantly telling me to give it another try, go again, giving me bus tickets to get to recovery and treatment. So it was that full continuum of care that I'll continue to support.
How did you get past the recurrence?
Oh, well, I mean, it's one of those many challenging things. I think, being able to build a connection with people. And so people really started to understand me, and it kind of just opened the door for, those relationships to be built. And, it finally led to success.
You started by volunteering, right?
I did. When I couldn't get a job. People, they don't, when you have a criminal record or a background of, where you haven't had employment in 20 years, people aren't, unfortunately, I think, people need to be more supportive of people. And so, yeah, I volunteered, and then that led to a person saying, hey, you know what, you're actually really good at this. And, it led to more employment.
Wonderful to hear. Guy Felicella is with me, and he is a peer clinical advisor with Vancouver Coastal Health, with the BC Centre on Substance Use. And he was speaking there about the road to employment. We're going to hear a little bit about that, as well as we are speaking with Working Gear Clothing Society, and Sarah Beley is here, who's the director. Before I go to her, I'm going to take a call from Andrea in Powell River. And Andrea, what does it take to rebuild your life in recovery?
Oh, hi. Firstly, just thank you so much for this topic today. Personally, nothing would have been possible through my recovery. I'm now 3.5 years clean and sober. I was working in healthcare and had severe PTSD and was in the throes of addiction for many years. And I went to treatment for 2 months and came home, and I had just an incredible community who supported me. So brought me food a couple times a week in the first few months after I got out of treatment. I've been incredibly fortunate to have private insurance that was able to support me in the first couple of years after getting out of treatment. So I've had financial support. I've had, just incredible support from my community, and including WorkSafe as well to this day. So counseling and occupational therapy and psychiatry.
Wow.
So an incredible amount of support. It is literally taking a village to keep me clean and sober.
That I was going to say, it's this network of people, but it started out with people just in your community showing up and helping you get through the need to eat. Yeah.
Just like really basics like that. Just things that I just had no skills around. I'm just grateful.
And what would you share with others? And I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story right now, and congratulations on being 3 years sober now. What would you like to share as advice for others listening?
One of the biggest barriers for me was an enormous amount of shame. So once I was able to reach out and be really open and honest with people that for some reason continued to love me despite my ongoing self-loathing, was just being able to finally open up a little bit and accept help.
That's shame once again. And Andrea, you work in healthcare. I wonder.
In healthcare, I've been off for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I have not been back to work yet. The previous caller, I think, was just speaking to just how difficult that is, and with concurrent disorders, it's working through a lot of things.
Absolutely. And you are doing just that, doing the hard work. Andrea, thank you so much. All the best in your journey. Really, really all the best.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you take care. That's Andrea in Powell River. Why don't I start with you on that then? Let's talk about someone who's going to start, the journey to work. They come to Working Gear, Sarah, and would like to have some help with clothing and presentation, but the shame, is it still there?
Yeah, I would say that the clients that we see, they've done all the work to get to where they want to be, but there's just a few more barriers. And the way that I see our charity operating is that we are this safe space for them to come in. There's no judgment. We're very welcoming. It doesn't look like a typical institutional charity. It looks like a free clothing shop. And that's kind of giving the agency of choice back to people that maybe haven't felt like they had control of their lives the last couple of years or for a long time. And when they come in, they're welcomed. Most of the volunteers that volunteer at Working Gear are previous clients themselves, and they come back to give back. Maybe they're having trouble finding a job, and they started volunteering also with Working Gear.
Right. And tell us more about what it is that you do and why that makes such a big difference.
I think everyone just needs a community to support themselves, and someone that's battling addiction or is battling substance use needs that community to be there for them to reassure them that they are worth it. They are taking the right steps to change their life. And that kind of keeps everyone, including our volunteers, going at Working Gear.
And we've seen footage of your what you say looks like a thrift shop, essentially. And so it's rows of clothing. There are suits. There are outdoor work gear as well, shirts. It really does look like a store. Can you tell us more about what happens there in a day?
Yeah, so they're welcomed in, and they can just go shopping. Sometimes they have questions about certain industry-specific questions, if it's something related to construction. Sometimes they just want an opinion on what color looks best on them. Sometimes they want to be left alone for a little bit as well. It's just an open place for questions to be asked that they might not feel comfortable asking anywhere else.
Let's take another call here. This is Road to Recovery, our series here on BC Today, looking at the journeys and the challenges faced by people who are on their own journey to recovery. And today we are wrapping up our series asking you, what does it take to rebuild your life when you're on that journey to recovery? What are the supports that are needed? Our numbers again are 604-669-3733 and 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or hit pound 690 on your phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. It is 12:18 now, Pacific time. And this is BC Today here on CBC. And throughout our series, we've heard from families who say they're not included in decision-making to support their loved ones. I spoke with Mental Health and Addictions Minister Jennifer Whiteside on May 31st. And let's hear a clip from that interview. It begins with me putting some of the comments to the minister. And we have an email from someone who wrote and said, I'm a mother of an addict. I need counseling myself, not just groups. I've participated in those groups, but I need one-on-one counseling for my grief. I've tried counseling and nothing. And we heard from another guest as well from Together We Can, Stephen Hall, who said there's just no help for families to navigate the system. What is available for families?
I agree that that's an area that we need to continue to do more work to integrate that kind of family care. And I know there are some organizations like Together We Can who do a good job of that. They really make it part of their program. And
They're
again,
privately
that's
run,
another.
though, yeah.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we're actually contracting with Together We Can. They're providing some services through our new initiative, a Road to Recovery that's being developed at St. Paul's, and we have a closer relationship with many community-based providers, but they're a critical part of the continuum of care.
That's Mental Health and Addictions Minister Jennifer Whiteside. You can watch that interview and all of the episodes of our Road to Recovery series online. Just go to the CBC Vancouver YouTube page, click on the Playlists tab, and you'll see it there, and watch all of the episodes of the series. I'm joined by Sarah Beley, Director of Working Gear Clothing Society, and harm reduction advocate Guy Felicella, as we wrap up our series Road to Recovery, asking you, what is it like to rebuild your life? What's needed? What does it take? What are the supports that you need? And Chrissy is calling now from Victoria. Hi, Chrissy.
Hi there.
And what would you like to share about your story?
I'm a registered nurse that also worked in the downtown east side for 6 years, and I'm in my own journey to recovery right now. I had been struggling with alcoholism for quite some time, probably since I was in my teens, not recognizing it until sort of life went on and things got worse for me, and I started using other substances to sort of cope with past traumas and also the vicarious trauma I was experiencing from working where I was working.
Absolutely.
And it's been almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years now for me since I went into recovery, and I was sharing just before that residential treatment was something that I did, but I spent 76 days in a residential treatment center, and I ended up relapsing still afterwards. And really for me, what it's been is I chose to do 12-step recovery. I've been in counseling pretty much my whole life, in and out of counseling. I've tried to do things on my own before, and I found really the community that I needed and the connectedness that I needed through the 12-step recovery programs here in Victoria. And that's what's helped me on my journey so far.
Why does it make such a big difference, that connectedness?
Well, I think that, everybody there, like when you share your story amongst people who have the same story, there's the shame is sort of eliminated. A lot of people couldn't understand that this isn't a moral failing. It's not that I wanted to cause myself this harm or my family this harm or, go to the levels that I went to using. And when you're in those rooms and you're talking about your stories, other people can relate, and the shame's gone and their guilt's gone. And it's like very much focused on the solution of how do we change our behaviors and take responsibility for ourselves. While recognizing that this is a disease, and it's a complex disease, and I guess often I feel like because people can't see it that way, there's a lot of stigma around it.
Yeah.
Whereas there, I feel heard, I feel validated, I feel understood, and I've had there's in 12-step recovery we have somebody called a sponsor who helps you on that journey as well, and I've had that person be available to me to talk about the things that I think in my head and, the feelings I have, and they guide you through those things. Whereas that somebody who might not have had those experiences because they couldn't relate to that kind of stuff.
Wow. You've spoken so eloquently to the need for that community, Chrissy. And you say you're still in this, in your own journey. What are your own goals?
Well, I just actually returned back to work, and so that was a huge. I was lucky that I had reported myself to my union, and I had gotten support to get some services. I do believe in outside help as well. I did cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy, and I continue to do one-to-one counseling as well as 12-step recovery. And I just went back to work, and I'm working in substance use and mental health still. Here in Victoria, and I at the point that I was at before I went into recovery, I was about to lose all those things. I have a daughter I was about to lose.
That must have been so scary.
Like everything was like I feel like if I had been out there for a couple more weeks, I probably wouldn't have come back from a lot of what I was doing, and I was going to lose it all. And in the last 2 years, I've rebuilt my life completely to go back to work, to have full custody of my child again, to be parenting and being the advocate and showing to other people that this is possible. We do recover. And my goal is just to continue to do that and continue to work with women in that capacity as well.
I can imagine the kind of empathy you bring to your work as well.
Yeah, I definitely lacked a lot of boundaries, I think, in the past too, and it's taught me, how to put myself first as well, and doing this work is so important, and supporting people and meeting them where they're at, and I do believe in a harm reduction philosophy still, and But for myself, it didn't work, and I had to look to recovery. But I still approach my work the same way, that like it's not what I think people should do. It's where people are at, and we need to be kind and compassionate and loving and support them and let them know, like, you know, that this isn't their fault necessarily. There's things that we have to take responsibility for to get ourselves back up, but it is a disease. And, you know, there's a lot of the trauma, undoing and unpacking years and years and years of trauma. It's a never ending process. And I'm aware of that now for even myself.
Yeah. And you are certainly, I mean, your story is it's inspiring, really, Chrissy. And for you to be back, as you say, with your daughter, back at work, it's a daily job, I'm sure, that you're still
Absolutely.
working at. And I really appreciate hearing from you. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
so much for sharing your story. That's
Thank
Chrissy.
you for having me on.
Chrissy and Victoria. Let's take one more call here before we wrap for the break. Natalie is on the line in Vancouver as we ask you, what does it take to rebuild your life on your journey to recovery? Hi, Natalie. Welcome.
Thank you.
And what did you want to share about your own journey?
I just finished a program, a 3-month program in BC, and so I came home. It was all like, mine was complex PTSD and trauma for over 50 years that I was dealing with. I didn't have an addiction, but trauma PTSD serves as also some significant illnesses. And I found that the treatment center that I was at focused more on the here and now and the mindfulness and so on and so forth. And they didn't really account, well, what happens when they're going from a safe bubble to the ugly outside world where people judge you and everything. So there was a lack of that bridging. And now it's very difficult. Like, this is going to be a long path to recovery. I see my psychologist about 3 times a week. There's DBT classes. There's art therapy that I'm going to be going to. So there's quite a bit. There's also RTMS as well that I was going to be continuing on with. So,
Pardon me, Natalie, what is RTMS?
It's I'm gonna mix this up. It's like a brain stimulates your brain.
Okay.
At certain notes, and it actually rewires your paths in your brain. So sorry,
No, that's fine. Just general description is absolutely fine.
So that's what's really lacking for me. I actually overdosed last week. And so just from the PTSD and just how I feel, and it's hard.
How are you feeling today?
My psychologist, I just told my psychologist, he said I had a lot of dark humor today. So it's like I said, they don't bridge that well enough, and
that's. I hope that you have support right now, today, and in the days since your overdose. I'm really sorry to hear that. And in the coming days, I hope you have support around you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Natalie. And a really important point there about the bridging too, from that, that safe space out into the outside world. We'll talk about that with Sarah and Guy coming up in our next half hour as well. Some really interesting points there, going from shame and stigma to solutions, and different kinds of recovery treatments that we heard about as well, different roads that people have taken. And again, that how do you bridge into the outside world? We'll dig a little bit more into that in our next half hour. This is BC Today here on CBC. We're live on Radio 1, CBC Television, and on our YouTube channel as well, or you can catch us live on the CBC News app and watch us there. We'll continue on with Guy Felicella and Sarah Beley of Working Gear Clothing Societies. We ask you, what does it take to rebuild your life in your journey to recovery? That's coming up after the CBC News update. And here's Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC's family benefit is increasing by an average of $450, and a family of 4 will now be eligible for up to $3,500 a year. Premier David Eby says about 66,000 more families will also qualify. The benefit is based on income and the number of children. A man is in hospital in stable condition after he was stabbed several times yesterday afternoon in Kelowna. He was attacked around 3:15 along Springfield Road. Police didn't give a possible motive, but they believe it was an isolated incident. No arrests have been made. And the RCMP in Richmond say a crackdown on unlicensed ride-hailing operators has led to 25 charges and more than $18,000 in financial penalties. They say officers used apps that aren't authorized in BC to identify and intercept several unlicensed drivers. Police say each driver faces fines of nearly $3,100. And now the forecast on the north coast, mainly cloudy this afternoon with a high of 15. Highs up to 15 with strong winds and rain in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 17. Highs up to 26 with sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 24. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, lots of sunshine this afternoon with highs up to 22 inland. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob. That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on BC Today on Radio 1, live streaming on the CBC News app and on CBC Vancouver's YouTube page. Again, you can go back and watch our Road to Recovery series on YouTube as well. Just hit playlist and you'll find our playlist there. Now, we've had many emails throughout our series Road to Recovery, and here are some more of them. Allison wrote us, I have 30 years of mental health experience and I've worked with families. What is missing for the person suffering from addiction and the families is a trauma-informed focus. This is most often the root of addiction, but the mental health system rarely explores the root. And Cynthia wrote about our episode with the families of people struggling with addiction. And she writes, my heart goes out to the women you were speaking to today. They are impossibly brave and resolute, but they must need so much help themselves, especially the single parents out there. I just wonder why they can't access safe supply for her daughter rather than getting her drugs from a dealer. Surely that would help. I also wonder if there should be a huge push to teach parents and educators. And we got this email this afternoon from Rod. When I sobered up in 1981, I was fortunate to have a solid support network of family, friends, counselors, and programs. I would not have survived if I had to return to the playground with the playmates and playthings. Survival is about support. It is that simple. Rod, thank you so much for your email as well. Again, our address is bctoday@cbc.ca. And we're back with our guests, Sarah Beley, Director of Working Clear Clothing Society, and Guy Felicella, Peer Clinical Advisor with Vancouver Coastal Health and the BC Centre on Substance Use. We're talking about what's needed for people to re-enter work life after being in recovery from addiction and rebuilding their life, whatever that looks like. So we're asking you, how did you rebuild your life during your recovery from addiction? Our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 or email us bctoday@cbc.ca. And let me go back to our guests here in studio. You know, what did you make of some of what you heard there, Sarah?
It's just reaffirming why we do what we do. Community, the support systems, working here as part of an ecosystem with employment counselors and like families to help their loved ones get back to work.
Yeah. How it sounds simple, as we heard from an email, that it just finds support. But is it really that simple? Does everybody have that access to support, Guy?
They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that goes on. It's so complex. It's so challenging. And there's like the list, the viewers and the emails were saying that, shame is just driving people into isolation. It really hinders you from reaching out and getting the support that you need. And I think we carry our own shame internally for how we believe things or perceive things throughout our lives. And drugs became the solution for a lot of us because of that unaddressed trauma or undiagnosed learning disabilities. And so it's not just getting off the drugs, it's actually changing your whole lifestyle. And, building a life where it's easier not to go back to the drugs. And that's where you need the support like Sarah's organization, or you need companies to, hire people as well and give them an opportunity. I think everybody in our society can learn new skills, whether they've worked in that force or not. I think it's really important that corporations start opening the doors to hire people. Like I was sharing with Sarah before we even got on here, I was saying that if you were a security detail, London Drugs, I'd hire the prolific offender that shoplifted for 10 years, that rehabilitated themselves to come in and be the security of my organization, because people are going to have a hard time getting things past him.
And Sarah, what do you say to people? There may be, we have this debate right now around public safety as well. When we were talking about the decriminalization pilot program that BC had, so what do you say? Do you work with companies in order to be able to bridge that gap?
Just in the last couple of years, we have been, and it's mainly, like I was telling Guy also earlier, that the larger companies are still having a bit of stigma in hiring people that have passed. But it's the smaller business contractors that will take a chance, and they do have the kind of foresight that they're to give someone a second chance or third chance as well.
How do you reassure them that this is not a risk? This is, and if they feel that it is a risk.
We've been doing job fairs where they meet face to face, and I think when you actually see a person and you talk to them and you kind of understand where they're coming from, it kind of breaks down that barrier versus if it's just like a resume.
And is there legally or ethically, what are people required to disclose? But at the same time, it is personal health. It's a personal health matter. So what are the lines there?
I think for our clients specifically, they've already kind of gone far enough in their journey where they're in recovery, and so there is always a risk of relapse, but it's not as strong because they have the support systems, and when we are seeing them, they've already come through other referral agencies and they have that kind of community in place.
They're at that stage.
Yeah. So I think it's less of a risk in that sense.
What do you advise people when it comes to how much they do share, Guy?
You got to be real careful. You got to be in a good place too. I go to trauma therapy still.
Yeah.
It really helps me being able to talk with somebody else. I do a lot of EMDR, which is reprocessing of the brain and just how you viewed yourself your whole life. So that really helps. Counseling helps. But yeah, you have to, really be to the level of comfort that you are and what you're willing to share. I think it's, when you go for employment as well, I think when people look at your past, there's not much. Like I said, from 1986, I worked at Expo 86. When I went to get another job, it was, 2015.
Right.
So there's a big gap.
Yeah, you do have to explain that somehow, I imagine.
Well, you can say you went to the moon or something, but but the reality is that in my circumstances of where I was working, obviously it was in the recovery and the harm reduction industry. So, they understand that. And so one of the things that I often try to tell people when they go into recovery treatment, it's like, hey, don't worry, we can get you a job as a client support worker in the field that you're actually have the understanding with.
That's just it. The value that brings, as well as we heard from, someone who was working in mental health as well, as a nurse. Joseph is our next caller now in Surrey. Hi, Joseph.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm in the King George Station. I was in transit. Yeah.
Are you?
By the way,
okay.
By the way, since we're on the topic, so I walk around, I'm just wandering around the station, and even now, 100 feet from me, there's 6 or 7 people doing crack, smoking crack. I know what that looks like, and it's really sad. Anyway,
Yeah.
I come from Alberta, and my friends, they took me out for coffee when they tricked me into going to detox, and then I went to a rehabilitation center, and I had a choice. There were many choices, and I chose one called Poundmaker, and it's actually an Indigenous one. And I'd worked with different Indigenous communities over my career, and I thought that might be a very interesting one to take. And so it took me a little to get in because I'm not Indigenous, I'm a white person, but I did get in, and it was a completely different expectation. It was all about the creator. It was all about peace and harmony. It was all about owning up to what you are. For instance, you're with a lot of elders, and they'll tell you, you're not an alcoholic. Once you stop drinking or stop doing drugs, you're not a drug addict. You're not an alcoholic because you're not doing it. and that helps get away with the shame. You know what I mean? You walk
Your
out with a
self-perception,
different
yeah.
kind well, exactly, and that's what and they're all about that creator. And I've been to, it's 8 weeks. I went to pick sage with elders in southern Alberta. I went to a Sundance festival. I went to night lodges, sweat lodges. It's all that sort of thing, and it was the most purifying. We would smudge 3 times a day. We would sit in circles. And there was lots of group therapy. And I walked out there 8 weeks later, and I haven't even smoked a cigarette since. I feel like $1 million, and that's been 4 years.
Wow. Congratulations to you, Joseph. And what a point that you make as well, that here's this, culturally safe and respectful program, and what can be learned from it for anyone.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
It was just that. And I learned 2 things. I'll tell you, I have sage at home, but 2 things are there. One, my spirit color is blue, and my spirit animal is a buffalo. And that's because a buffalo stands facing the wind. And I like that.
Good for you.
I even have a name, but I can't pronounce it.
Joseph, I really appreciate your calling, and you're here at the SkyTrain station right now, so thanks for making the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, really good to hear from you. Guy, you were nodding there. Perhaps there is something to be learned from these culturally appropriate, there are specifics for people who are Indigenous, but what are the things that can be applicable?
Oh, they're vital. I mean, there's so many pathways, and I don't care what pathway people find. You find a pathway that works for you. I mean, whether it's 12-step, culture appropriate, trauma informed, whatever it is to better and enhance your life to, move forward with it. That's recovery. Yeah. It's not, a set of, it's not like religion. It's spiritual.
Yeah, it's what works for you. And so how do you know? How do you, I guess you're trying what might work until you get there. How do you know once you found what will help you?
Well, you oftentimes when you walk into a place, like whether it's 12-step or where there's people, it's that connection piece. That is human connection really changed the direction of my life, and it gave me the ability not only saved my life but changed it to where I live the life that I have today. I think it's the most powerful thing, and the opposite of addiction is connection, and without that, you're going to struggle in isolation.
We've heard it several times now, haven't we? Social isolation, the need for community, the need for support, someone bringing food to a friend who is in recovery. Andrew is on the line now in Coquitlam. Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for calling.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Sure, yeah. What did you want to share?
I just, I came out to BC in 2016 for recovery, and once I was completed my program, I was invited to work for them. I have a special skill set that they were looking for, and just over the past 8 years, the support, I really emphasize the support and the understanding of, going from one life to another, and the things we experience, or things I experienced, which, could be something that would put me back on drugs or would take me back to drugs. I've found support to get through that, like financial, like family deaths in the family, and just things that I never thought I would be able to get through sober. That's all been provided within the community that I work in.
Wow. So you are in an industry that is supportive of you.
Pardon me?
You're in an industry that is supportive of your recovery.
Oh, definitely. So I still work for the center that I went through, and I'm branching out, starting my own business.
Wow.
And it's just the support, like mentorship for business stuff, or networking within the community. I did work for an employer where I disclosed my case, and she was very understanding because there was instances of addiction in her family. But I've never, that was the only one and only time I did that, because there is that fear and the stigma, and then, so I keep it close to home, and the support I feel is unparalleled.
Well, and here you are now giving back by starting a business to help mentor.
Yes, and then my goal is to help. I'm in accounting and just provide services for those in the recovery community.
Wow. That is really laudable, Andrew. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the focus on this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate your call. Thank you. That's Andrew in Coquitlam. Let's go to Jeremy in Nelson now. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And what did you want to share about rebuilding your life in recovery?
Well, I started a debilitating heroin addiction when I was 15, and used right up until I was 28 when I got sober in 2007. And I did outside counseling. I did a lot of 12-step work, and a really big part of it was, I had a loving family that I knew if I could get my life, if I could just get sober, I have the love and support of the family, which really helped. And, I was in situations when I was using that I saw people intentionally infecting themselves with HIV because they would get an extra $100 on their welfare check. Like, the hopelessness of the situations that I was in was just totally apparent, but I knew there was more for me if I could just get sober. And so I went to a treatment center in 2007, a 12-step based treatment center, and very slowly, day by day, managed to rebuild my life into something that I'd actually want to live.
What made the biggest difference to you, your family?
Well, I had the love and support. So I got my youngest son on my shoulders. Yeah, I had a loving, I had a really neat, supportive family that I knew that if I could just, put a couple of days together, they'd accept me. And they were always, they never gave up on me. They always tried, but, I really turned my back on them because I was so ashamed of what I was doing.
And Jeremy, I understand.
Had to do.
Pardon me, I'm sorry to jump in. I understand now you're working actually as a frontline worker yourself?
Yes, I'm a frontline social worker in Nelson, working, basically every day. We do a lot of overdose response, crisis intervention. So, I've been doing that for almost 9 years.
9 years.
And, as a result of getting sober, I've got, 3 amazing children. I've got incredible life that, had I not gotten sober, there's no way I would have been able to do that. And then to give back to my community.
Absolutely.
Every day through my work is incredibly rewarding as well.
You are a role model, Jeremy. Thank you very much.
Do you want to say hi, Oliver?
Enjoy your ride on your dad's shoulders, Oliver. Take care.
Thank you.
That's Jeremy in Nelson. Our last caller today is Roger in Victoria. Hi, Roger. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
And what did you want to say about rebuilding?
Yeah, just for my experience, I work in a unionized environment, and just having a collective agreement that helped foster me, make it kind of more safe for me to go to treatment a couple of times, actually. Like the unions and, employer health policies can make a big difference in people's lives that way. Sorry, I was just going to say, for me, I went a couple of times once to Edgewood and once to Cedars, and a big part of me returning after that was the aftercare program that those facilities offered, and this ongoing trauma therapy. I think I heard your one person there talking about trauma therapy and EMDR. Those kinds of things have really helped me to heal over the last 8 years. It's totally changed my life. So
wow.
But sometimes not knowing that your employer has that kind of a policy, finding that information can be difficult. But in my case, I just happened to know somebody who was also gone to treatment. So when I began to experience difficulty myself, I felt it was kind of safer to reach out and ask for help from my employer.
Yeah, the really important information as well, Roger. Thank you very much, and congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Roger in Victoria. Is that part of union agreements? Are unions and employers getting more aware of the need for support within their industries?
Yeah, I mean, it's talked about, obviously, the union agreement. You have a union rep that would explain, or ADP counselor. But yeah, it's, again, you got to understand as well, like this is the thing is that, a lot of times people don't reach out because they're at fear of they're losing their jobs. So it's good to know your background and the policies at any workplace that you work at.
How do you bridge? We heard earlier about bridging to the outside world. Sarah, how do you do that? How do you support the strength to be able to do that?
As a charity or as an individual?
As an individual. What do you tell your clients as they head out there?
Just like that we believe in them and they can do it. I think just being there,
Just being there.
Yeah. And then I've noticed that a lot of our clients want to come back and give back. They want to volunteer, and I think just being open for that.
Noticed that several times from our callers. It's amazing. And Guy, what do you say to someone who's anticipating that return to the larger world?
Just one day at a time, just like it took to get your recovery to where it is. I didn't get over 11 years sober in 11 years. I got it one day at a time and just built off the success of that. And remember that it's just a process, and it's often one that's slow, but, I don't give up on people. And, all the callers here, I'll tell you, the gift of recovery, if you want to stay sober, you go help somebody else. I'll tell you right now, that's the secret to success for everybody out there.
We've heard that so many times throughout this hour. I really appreciate both of you for joining us for this the final installment of our series. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
That's Sarah Beley, who's Director of Working Gear, and Guy Felicella is a peer clinical advisor with Vancouver Coastal Health and the BC Centre on Substance Use. Okay, for hockey fans out there, this is an understatement. Today is a huge day for Edmonton Oilers fans, pretty much every Canadian who wants to see the Stanley Cup come home. This morning I ordered some food and the delivery driver was all decked out in his own Oilers jersey. Yeah, you see a lot of that everywhere for sure. Tonight in sunny southern Florida, the Oilers will face the Panthers for a decisive Game 7. One team will become the 2024 Stanley Cup champions and make hockey history. The game is live on CBC television. It all starts at 5 o'clock Pacific. The CBC's Sam Sanson has been talking to fans outside the arena and sets the stage for us in Sunrise, Florida.
We are already starting to meet fans who are trickling in from all over the continent for the Oilers versus Panthers game. Game 7 tonight here at Amarant Bank Arena. And we met a fan here who took a red eye. He drove down from Edmonton to Calgary, went to San Francisco, overnighted to Florida, and the first thing he did was come here to see where history will be made tonight. And he told us, look, why am I making all of this effort? Why am I taking this journey? The longest distance between playoff cities in NHL history? Here's what he said.
Chance to see them win the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's a great opportunity. At the end of the day, there's history that could be made here. And I think really probably one of the more exciting NHL games, Game 7 with so many storylines, had to be here for this one.
Fans have been on such a roller coaster. Think about it. The Edmonton Oilers were down 3-0, and there were some possible doubts, a little bit of desperation when we were chatting with fans after Game 3. But after that, now they have evened the playing field to make it to Game 7. The only other team to come back from 3-0 and win it all in the Stanley Cup was back in 1942, the Toronto Maple Leafs. So the Edmonton Oilers are looking for a comeback that this league has not seen in 82 years. Now, what's the other dry spell that the team is hoping to break? Well, yes, the Edmonton Oilers have 5 Stanley Cups, but the last one was back in 1990. And on a national scale, it has been 31 years since any Canadian team has brought the Stanley Cup back across the border. The Montreal Canadiens were the last to do so in 1993. So with all of that context, with all of that history on the line, are the players keeping that in mind? Are they feeling it?
We're all human and we're aware of the situation and what we've accomplished so far, but I think if you go past that, it just at the end of the day comes down to one game. We have to focus on winning one hockey game on the road and play our best, and everything else, all the stories will take care of itself after.
For for those Canadians who do cheer for the Florida Panthers, I know you're out there. You could see history too if your team wins tonight. The franchise started back in 1993, and this would be the first Stanley Cup in team history. The Florida Panthers are hungry for this win. Their word of the playoff run is redemption, because remember, they lost against the Vegas Knights in last year's playoff run. It would also be historic for the head coach of the Florida Panthers, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's own Paul Maurice. He's been a veteran NHL coach for more than 30 years, and this would be his first league trophy. So no matter what plays out tonight, we're going to see some history. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Sunrise, Florida.
Are there Florida Panthers fans out there? I can't say I've seen jerseys around Vancouver, but as Sam Sampson said, the stakes are high for the Oilers heading into Game 7. But if the players are nervous, they're not really showing it. We heard from Oilers forward Leon Draisaitl in Sam's report. And here now is Oilers defenseman Mattias Ekholm, and he spoke this morning.
You have been in this position now for, 3 straight. This will be the 4th straight game. So for us, nothing changes. And I think if you blow this game up in your mind, you're just going to be nervous and not play your game. So boring answer, but I'm trying to approach this as a game in February where I guess maybe you don't have the headlights on this spot as much, but just kind of do your normal routine. And I'm going to go have my pregame meal. I'm going to take a nap and come back ready to go. And hopefully we'll be able to come out on the winning side tonight.
That's Mattias Ekholm, really eye on the prize there, right? I will not be deterred. I will not be distracted. He was speaking this morning ahead, of course, of Game 7. And that is going to be aired tonight at 5 o'clock on CBC television. Very exciting. I know we have some team members here on the show sitting in our control room who may or may not be wearing Oilers jerseys right now. It's a little orange in our control room right now. I know a lot of you are excited about it too, because this would be a Canadian win, wouldn't it? They're Canada's team now. So that's tonight at 5 o'clock. We'll tell you all about it, of course, tomorrow on the program. You'll hear it on your morning shows, and I'm sure throughout the day here on CBC. And now we heard from Oilers coach Chris Knoblauch as well, and he's keeping his usual routine today to stay calm, which included sleeping in and working out. So 4 hours away, Game 7, Edmonton versus Florida. It is winner take all. Live on CBC TV at 5 o'clock Pacific.